Some places don't just exist, they echo. You step into a room and suddenly you're 12 again, bracing for disappointment. Or you walk down a hallway and feel your chest tighten, like the air remembers something you've tried to forget. This isn't just nostalgia, it's the emotional architecture of our lives, how spaces shape us, hold us, and sometimes hurt us. In this episode, we're exploring the deep, often invisible relationship between our environments and our emotions. From childhood bedrooms that carry the weight of unmet expectations to fluorescent lit offices that drain us long before the workday ends, we'll trace the subtle ways our surroundings influence how we feel, behave, and recover. This isn't just about buildings. It's about the body, the mind, the stories carved into walls, the silence in empty chairs, and the strange grief that comes from being somewhere you no longer belong. Some places carry a weight we can't always explain. We walk into a room and feel a tightness in our chest, or a strange warmth that we didn't expect. These reactions aren't random. The brain attaches emotions to places, often without our permission. That's because when we experience something meaningful, especially something charged with emotion, the memory isn't stored in isolation. It gets tied to the space where it happened. This process starts with two key parts of the brain, the hippocampus and the amygdala. The hippocampus helps us form memories. It keeps track of context, like where we were and what was around us. The amygdala scans for emotional intensity. When we feel strong emotions, fear, shame, joy, grief, the amygdala makes sure that feeling gets paired with whatever is happening. Together, they act like a camera crew filming both the scene and the emotion at once. If something important happens, especially something painful or profound, the brain makes a mental note of the place. Sometimes this pairing stays quiet for years, until we return to the space. Then the memory reactivates, not just as a thought, but as a feeling. It's not just a flashback, it's a full-body sense that something unresolved still lives there. A woman visits her childhood home after being away for over a decade. The rooms look smaller now. The wallpaper has faded, but as she steps through the doorway, a deep discomfort rises. She can't explain it right away. Later, she realizes it isn't about the home itself, it's about who she was when she lived there. The living room, where she was told to sit still. The kitchen, where her report cards were laid out like court evidence. The hallway she once walked down, trying to build up the courage to ask for permission to quit piano lessons. Every corner of the house holds a version of her shaped by expectation, not choice. It isn't fear that grips her, it's the return of a younger self who always felt like she wasn't enough. These emotional traces don't live in the walls, but in how our brain has stored the space. The house didn't change, her nervous system just remembered. This is why places can feel like they remember things we'd rather forget. The idea that buildings don't forget isn't just poetic, it's neurologically supported. When we experience strong emotion in a place, our body remembers it through sensory cues, the sound of footsteps in a stairwell, the scent of an old carpet, the light through a narrow window. These cues can pull memories to the surface, even ones we've buried. Structures become silent witnesses. They hold the shape of our joy, our regrets, and the moments that split us in two. A hospital hallway remembers the footsteps of a father who learned his child wouldn't make it. A high school auditorium carries the echo of a voice cracking during a solo. A bedroom still seems to hum with the arguments that happened late at night. These spaces don't speak, but they reflect. A man walks past the office building where he worked for 10 years. He doesn't look up. It's not because he's ashamed of losing his job. He left with dignity. But every time he sees the entrance, he feels a hollow ache. It's the kind of ache you get when a part of your life ends without ceremony. Inside that building, he grew into someone, he mentored others, found a rhythm, created a version of himself that had purpose. When the company restructured and his role vanished, it wasn't just a job that ended. A version of himself got locked out too. Now, the building stands unchanged, but it's not just concrete and glass. It's a shell of a past life. He avoids that block now, not out of shame, but because the space reminds him of someone he no longer gets to be. In these ways, architecture becomes more than background. It becomes part of our emotional script. We return to a space, and it cues us to feel something we once felt there. Sometimes comfort, sometimes deep sorrow, Our surroundings, once neutral, turn into landmarks of emotion. Even simple structures, benches, stairwells, doorways, can carry this kind of charge. It's why some people avoid the booth in a cafe where they once ended a relationship, or the park where they scattered ashes, or the church that saw their wedding and their divorce. We move on, but the spaces stay rooted. They don't change unless we change our relationship to them. That's the emotional landscape of space. It's not just about walls and windows. It's about how the places we've lived and passed through have stored versions of us, some tender, some unfinished. Memory isn't just a thing we carry, it's also something we walk through. After socializing, many people feel an unexpected low. What felt enjoyable just hours before now feels heavy. You may sit alone, stare at your phone, replay conversations, or feel like you gave too much of yourself. This post-social crash is common, and it has roots in the brain. Social interaction releases dopamine and serotonin. Dopamine boosts motivation and reward. Serotonin balances mood and helps us feel secure. When we laugh, connect, or feel seen, these chemicals rise. They help us stay engaged. But like any system that runs at high speed, there's a cost. The brain can only maintain these elevated states for so long before it needs to reset. Think of it like a sudden spike in a building's electrical grid. The lights flare brighter, the hum of activity grows louder, but when the surge ends, the system flickers. Sometimes it overloads and shuts down. That shutdown is what we often experience as emotional whiplash. The energy we had while socializing drains quickly. We may feel flat, anxious, or foggy. The shift from external attention to internal silence can be jarring. People call this an emotional hangover. It doesn't mean something went wrong. It means the system is recalibrating. Your nervous system worked hard to keep you connected, tuned in, and emotionally present. Now it wants quiet. This crash hits harder for people who spend energy managing a social mask. A mask is a behavior or role someone takes on to fit into a group or setting. Most people do this to some extent, putting on a smile, choosing their words carefully, showing only part of themselves. But for some, especially those who are neurodivergent or socially anxious, the mask is more than surface. It's a full emotional performance. They monitor tone, eye contact, body language, even the rhythm of their speech. This constant self-regulation takes effort. It's like running an HVAC system at full capacity all day, cooling, heating, circulating, adjusting to keep others comfortable, often at the expense of your own balance. A teacher stands at the front of her classroom every day. She smiles, uses a bright voice, remembers birthdays, and stays positive even when the students aren't engaged. She gives her energy freely because she believes that's what her students need. But each afternoon, she drives home in silence. The quiet feels like a wall. She lies on the couch and stares at the ceiling. Sometimes she cries. Other times, she just feels numb. She wonders why she feels worse after a good day. It takes her hours to return to herself. The truth is, the person she showed in class is only part of who she is. That version is warm and upbeat, but it's not whole. The rest of her, tired, unsure, serious, is pushed aside to keep the persona going. By evening, the weight of that mask becomes too much. What she feels isn't regret about the job. It's a quiet grief for the parts of herself that stayed hidden all day. The longer someone performs, the more the system strains. When social energy is spent and the mask stays on, the recovery takes longer. This is not a failure of character. It's a sign that the inner systems are overloaded. Another layer of this internal architecture is the constant surveillance some people place on themselves. Overthinking often begins after socializing, but it's not just about the past few hours. It's about deeper patterns, self-doubt, fear of rejection, a need to appear perfect. These patterns are often learned early, when approval felt conditional. Maybe a child had to be easy to be loved. Maybe they learned that mistakes brought punishment, not guidance. Over time, these beliefs form a kind of internal security system. This internal system monitors everything. It watches how you sit, how you speak, how you respond. It doesn't rest when you get home. It plays footage on loop, analyzing tone, scanning for awkwardness, highlighting what could have been done better. Like a building with too many cameras and alarms, this kind of over-monitoring creates anxiety. It keeps the system on high alert, even when there's no threat. Perfectionism often grows in these spaces. The person believes that if they can just get everything right, be likable, agreeable, smart, they can avoid pain. But the price is constant self-surveillance. They become both the actor and the critic. They never feel fully safe to relax. There are ways to reduce this overactive system. One is learning to interrupt the loop. This doesn't mean ignoring your thoughts. It means noticing when your brain is replaying the same moment again and again and gently stepping out of the loop, saying, "That moment is over. I don't need to watch it again." Writing down the thought helps externalize it. It turns the vague anxiety into something concrete you can respond to. Another approach is grounding. Instead of staying in your head, bring your awareness to your body. Feel your feet on the floor. Run your hands under warm water. Look around the room and name 5 objects. These simple acts help signal safety to the nervous system. They say, "You're not in danger. You don't need to scan." The most important step is compassion, not as a vague idea, but as a real practice. This means speaking to yourself in the way you would to a friend who's exhausted, not broken. It means saying, "You tried, you gave a lot, and now it's okay to rest." This kind of inner kindness isn't weakness, it's maintenance. Just like a building needs regular care to stay strong, so does your emotional system. Post-social regret is rarely about what actually happened. It's often about the gap between who we were and who we thought we should be. When we push too hard to be liked or stay silent when we wanted to speak, the regret shows up later. It whispers, "Why did you do that?" But underneath, it's really asking, is it safe to be real next time? That's a question worth listening to. Not to punish yourself, but to care for the parts of you that have been trying so hard to keep the whole system running. The spaces we move through shape how we feel. Light, sound, texture, these are not just details. They form the emotional atmosphere of a room. We often think of emotions as internal, but they're also deeply tied to our surroundings. A dark hallway can raise your heart rate. A wooden table can soften your posture. A harsh buzzing light can make it hard to focus or relax. Our bodies notice before our minds catch up. Lighting is one of the most powerful emotional triggers in a space. Natural light tends to calm the nervous system. It signals safety and time. Fluorescent light, on the other hand, has a different effect. It hums, it flickers, even when our eyes don't see it. It's cold and flat, often found in hospitals, offices, and institutional buildings. That kind of light sends a message. Stay alert, stay awake, do not rest. It drains emotional warmth from the room. Over time, people in fluorescent-lit environments report more fatigue and more irritability. Material also matters. Spaces built with smooth plastic, steel, or exposed concrete can feel efficient but not comforting. These materials are cool to the touch and impersonal. They don't absorb warmth or sound. Wood is different. It holds warmth. Its grain is irregular, familiar, textured. A wooden chair, even if it's hard, feels more welcoming than a metal one. Fabric has a similar effect. It absorbs sound, softens corners, and gives the body permission to relax. Sound completes the atmosphere. Large open rooms with hard surfaces echo. The sound bounces back, making voices louder and sharper. In contrast, spaces with carpets, bookshelves, and curtains muffle sound. They make quiet easier. They offer a kind of auditory privacy that helps people think and breathe. Environmental psychology studies these effects. It looks at how physical surroundings shape mental states. One small workplace study compared 2 break rooms in the same office building. The first was bright with white walls, metal chairs, a vending machine, and overhead fluorescent lights. The second was redesigned with warm lighting, wooden furniture, plants, and soft seating. Both rooms served the same purpose: short breaks, small meals, but the changes in behavior were clear. In the first room, people stayed for a few minutes, often looking at their phones. Conversation was minimal. In the second, people lingered. They talked more, smiled more, and even returned later in the day. The space didn't just offer rest, it gave emotional permission to be at ease. The design didn't need to be expensive or complex, it just needed to feel human. That's the difference between a space that supports you and one that drains you. Our environments either reflect care or indifference. We respond accordingly. Some rooms hold a different kind of weight, not because of their materials or lighting, but because of who is missing. These are rooms marked by absence. A chair left in its usual spot, a coat still hanging on a hook. a desk with dust gathering around a half-used pen. The silence in these spaces feels thick, not because it's loud, but because it's full of memory. These rooms hold the outlines of someone who once moved through them. Grief settles into space. The shape of a room doesn't change, but its meaning does. The same walls now feel larger, quieter, more hollow. In these spaces, time seems to stretch. They feel paused, as if the room is waiting for something that won't return. A widow lives alone now. She has moved on in many ways. She goes to the store, keeps up with appointments, waters the plants, but her husband's study remains untouched. It's not a shrine. It's not even tidy. The shelves still lean under the weight of books. A worn chair sits at the desk. His glasses rest on a coaster beside a cold lamp. She doesn't go in often. But sometimes, when the house is too quiet, she opens the door. She stands just inside. The air smells faintly of paper and dust. She doesn't cry, not every time, but her breath changes. Her shoulders shift. She feels both warmth and ache. Love and loss arrive at the same time. That room carries his presence, not as a ghost, but as a trace. It holds the version of her that was once part of a pair. It reminds her of late-night conversations, quiet companionship, and the small routines that filled a life. But it also reminds her that those moments are over. The silence is no longer peaceful. It's hollow. It echoes not with sound, but with absence. These emotional reactions to space aren't imagined. They come from how the brain stores context. Memory isn't just visual, it's spatial. Our nervous system links emotion to location. That's why some rooms make us feel safe without knowing why, and why others, though unchanged, make our chests tighten. We often overlook how much influence our surroundings have on our state of mind. But our bodies know. They sense the flicker of a bulb, the echo of an empty hallway, the comfort of worn wood under a resting hand. They remember who was here, what was felt, and what was lost. They hold the story, even when the space is silent. Some spaces change over time, not because they physically shift, but because of what happens inside them. When a place is tied to a repeated emotional state, it starts to carry that feeling even when nothing's happening. A cubicle isn't threatening on its own, but after months of stress, tension, or dread, it can feel like a trap. A bedroom can start as a place of comfort, but become heavy when sadness or isolation visits night after night. Repetition reinforces the emotional meaning of a space. The body learns to expect a feeling when entering a certain room. This is emotional imprinting. It's how a location starts to carry an emotional charge based on what keeps happening there. Over time, the body anticipates the same response. The nervous system begins to fire before the situation even begins. It's no longer just about what happened, but where it happened and how often. The phrase, "the body keeps the score," explains this well. Our bodies record trauma, tension, and fear, often without our full awareness. When a space is associated with repeated stress, it becomes a kind of trigger. You might walk into your kitchen and suddenly feel irritable, even if nothing's wrong, or sit at your desk and feel your chest tighten before you've opened your laptop. The brain links location with experience, and the body responds automatically. People often try to push through this discomfort. They tell themselves it's just a room, just a task, just another day. But the nervous system doesn't respond to logic. It responds to patterns. If your body learns that sitting in that chair means being ignored, judged, or overwhelmed, then each time you sit there, the same signals fire. Your shoulders tense, your breath shortens. You're not overreacting. You're responding to memory. This isn't limited to single rooms. Entire environments can become emotionally charged. An office building, a school hallway, a particular stretch of road. If emotional pain happened there often enough, the location itself starts to carry a shadow. Some people manage this by avoiding the places that trigger them. This can seem irrational from the outside, but it's often an instinctive act of self-protection. When the body associates a space with threat, it activates the trauma response system: fight, flight, or freeze. These responses are rooted in survival. They bypass conscious thought. If a room made you feel unsafe over and over, your nervous system doesn't need to be told twice. It will push you away, even if you think you should be able to handle it. Avoidance is one of the clearest signs that a space has been imprinted with emotional pain. A person might avoid an entire building, a hallway, a street, or a whole neighborhood. They may feel silly or overreactive for doing it, but the urge comes from deep inside. The goal is not to be dramatic. The goal is to stay safe, or at least to feel safer than they did when the trauma occurred. A woman went through a hard breakup in her late 20s. It wasn't just the end of a relationship, it was the collapse of a shared future. They had lived together, made routines, had their favorite spots. It all happened in one part of town. Years later, even after starting a new relationship, she still avoids that part of the city. She drives the longer route. She cancels dinner plans if someone suggests a restaurant nearby. She tells herself it's because of traffic or parking, but the real reason is simpler. That place holds her grief. It carries the version of herself who hoped and trusted and got let down. Walking those streets brings her back to long walks filled with silence, arguments whispered in public, the final conversation in a parked car near the river. Her body remembers it all. Even if the area has changed, her nervous system hasn't forgotten. This kind of spatial avoidance can feel like a loss in itself. People begin to shape their routines around what they can't face. They limit where they go, who they see, what they allow themselves to revisit. They may not realize they're doing it. But when you track the paths people take and the spaces they avoid, you often see the shape of past pain. For some, even trying to return to the space can trigger symptoms. Their heart races, their breath catches. They may feel numb, dizzy, or irritable. These are not signs of weakness. They are signs that the nervous system has identified a place as dangerous, even if no clear threat is present. That learned fear sticks because the body's primary job is to protect. Recovery doesn't mean forcing yourself to return to painful places. Sometimes healing means understanding why the reaction is there in the first place. The goal isn't exposure. The goal is choice. When you understand the link between emotion and location, you gain more clarity about your needs. You stop blaming yourself for being sensitive or irrational. You begin to notice where your system feels safe and where it still remembers harm. Over time, some spaces can be reclaimed, but it usually takes more than just walking through the door. It takes new experiences layered over the old ones. Gentle, slow moments where the nervous system learns that this place doesn't always have to hurt. But until that process begins, avoidance is often a way the body says, not yet. The places we avoid tell a story. So do the ones we return to over and over, even when they exhaust us. Our spaces don't just hold furniture and walls. They hold memory. They shape mood. They influence whether we feel grounded or trapped. And whether we're moving through a room or moving past a loss, our nervous systems carry the map. Being in a room full of people doesn't guarantee connection. Sometimes, it does the opposite. It reveals how far away you feel from everyone else. It's like standing in an unheated room while watching others sit by a fire. You can see the warmth, even admire it, but you don't feel it. That gap can make loneliness sharper. It's not just the absence of people, it's the absence of emotional contact while surrounded by others who seem to have it. This kind of loneliness often surprises people. They expect that being near others will reduce their sense of isolation, but instead it brings it into focus. When you're alone in your house, loneliness might feel quiet, even dull. But when you're in a crowded room, it becomes loud. It compares, it scans. You notice who is laughing, who is touching shoulders, who is leaning in during a story, and you begin to wonder, why not me? The experience isn't just physical distance from others, it's emotional distance from connection. Attachment theory offers a way to understand this. From early life, we develop mental models, internal working models that shape how we expect relationships to feel. If care was consistent, we may expect warmth. If care was unpredictable or conditional, we may expect withdrawal or disappointment. These models guide how we interpret social spaces. Someone with a secure attachment may enter a group and assume connection is possible. Someone with an insecure model may enter the same room and prepare to be rejected, ignored, or misunderstood. These assumptions aren't conscious. They run quietly in the background, but they shape how we move through social life. They affect tone, body language, eye contact, and they influence how we feel afterward. If you expect others to be distant, you may not notice moments of warmth when they appear. If you expect rejection, you might see it even when it's not there. The loneliness that shows up in company isn't just about the present moment, it's the echo of past patterns. People try to fix this loneliness by changing the setting. They go to new events, join groups, plan trips. Sometimes this works, but often the problem travels with them. They enter a space filled with hope, expecting the setting to change their inner state. When it doesn't, they feel the gap even more. A woman books a week-long yoga retreat after a difficult year. She's tired, emotionally raw, and unsure who she's becoming. The retreat promises peace, clarity, and community. She arrives and steps into a space filled with soft music, open smiles, and kind instructions. It seems like the perfect setting for healing. But as the days pass, she begins to feel left out. Others form small groups. She joins meals, but the conversations stay shallow. During classes, her mind wanders. She watches others seem at ease and wonders why she still feels so separate. She thought the retreat would fix something. That being in a calm place with good people would make her feel whole again. But the setting couldn't fill what had been missing for years: real emotional closeness, a feeling of being known. The gap wasn't caused by the retreat. It was revealed by it. She left feeling more isolated than before, but also clearer. She realized the loneliness she felt wasn't about this group of strangers. It was about the space she carried inside her. This is often the quiet heartbreak of failed social experiences. We don't just feel regret for time spent. We feel regret for the hope we brought with us, the belief that this time would be different, that this setting would warm us. When it doesn't, we walk away not only disappointed, but a little more unsure of ourselves. We ask questions like, why did I even come? What's wrong with me? Why can't I feel what others seem to feel? Social spaces carry expectations. We expect that being there will soothe loneliness, that conversation will soften silence, that shared activity will replace emptiness. But these expectations often rely on outside forces to repair inner wounds. When that doesn't happen, the result isn't just disappointment, it's a return to self-doubt. This doesn't mean we should avoid social spaces, but it does mean we should enter them with clearer awareness. When we carry old emotional patterns into new rooms, the rooms often take on those patterns too. We begin to believe that no space is safe, no group is right, no person can reach us. But sometimes, the space isn't the failure. The expectation was simply too large for what it could hold. Feeling empty in a full room is not uncommon. It's not proof that something's broken. It's a sign that there are places inside still waiting to be met, not by a crowd, but by honesty, by care, and often by deeper internal work. Until that happens, social spaces can feel like beautiful structures with no heat. The design is good, the walls are solid, but something's missing, and it takes more than presence to feel the warmth. It takes connection that can't always be created on demand. Sometimes the architecture around us is fine. It's the insulation inside that needs repair. Imagine yourself as a building, not just made of skin and bones, but walls, wiring, and structure. Your psyche is not one thing, it's many rooms. Each room holds a state of feeling: joy, fear, calm, anger, rest. Some rooms are bright and open, others stay closed most of the time, collecting dust. You may visit your confident room each morning before work. You may pass through your anxious room when you open your inbox. At night, you might sit for a while in the quiet room of sadness, even if you don't speak it out loud. The hallways between these rooms are the thoughts that move you from one state to another. Some routes are well-worn, others are hard to reach. When something stressful happens, you might find yourself in the anger room before you even realize you turned the corner. When something peaceful happens, you might slowly open the door to contentment. Each room is real in how it affects you. The building is always in use. Your emotional regulation works like the HVAC system. It keeps everything stable. When the temperature rises, it cools you down. When your inner world grows cold, it brings warmth. It works best when it's tuned. If it's clogged or broken, your system either overreacts or fails to adjust. This system keeps the whole structure livable. It balances reactions. But it uses energy. That energy comes from your power grid, your reserves, social interaction, problem solving, decision making. All of these pull from the grid. When everything runs at once, lights, HVAC, appliances, the demand rises fast. You can't see the grid, but you feel it. When it's strong, you respond well. When it's low, small things feel heavier. The more your system pushes past its limits, the more it strains. Post-socializing crashes feel like a grid overload. You spend the day performing, adjusting, reading others. Every conversation uses emotional current. At first, it feels fine, but by the time you're home, you flick the switch and nothing responds. You try to make a simple decision and feel foggy. You sit down to rest and exhaustion hits hard. That's the shutdown. Not because something went wrong, but because you reached capacity. All buildings, including you, need maintenance. A quiet room, a low light, a break in noise. Time alone gives your systems a chance to cool down. Journaling clears cluttered pathways. It lets you sweep the floors, check the wiring, make sure the pressure in the pipes hasn't built up too much. Therapy acts like a full inspection. It brings in someone trained to spot what you've learned to ignore. Not to tear things down, but to help you understand how you're built and where the strain is showing. Sometimes the problems go deeper than daily use. Some buildings were built fast. Maybe corners were cut. Maybe the foundation didn't settle right. Past traumas can act like structural flaws. They aren't visible from the outside, but they shift how the whole system functions. A trauma may cause one wing of the building to be sealed off. It may cause the HVAC system to overcompensate, cooling the sadness room too fast, heating the anger room with no control. The result is imbalance. Some people grow up in storms. They patch walls while still inside them. They learn to live in rooms that others might find unlivable. Their ceilings crack from pressure. Their windows stay shut to block out wind. These aren't character flaws. They're signs of adaptation. But over time, those adaptations can make the building feel rigid or unsafe. If a trauma was never addressed, it leaves weight on the frame. Certain events press on that weak spot. A casual comment feels like a quake. A rejection causes the lights to flicker. You might not know why, but something in the foundation shifts under the pressure. That's when the building no longer feels steady. That's when a single moment feels too big for your walls to hold. Everyone has areas of strain. The goal is not to build a perfect structure. It's to understand where the design is solid and where it needs care. When you notice patterns, why certain rooms flood easily, why some corners stay cold, you start to work with your own architecture instead of fighting it. Some rooms are hard to enter. They carry memories or feelings that you'd rather leave behind, but they're still part of the house. You can lock the door, but you'll still feel the draft. Sometimes visiting the room with support makes it less threatening, not because it becomes pleasant, but because it becomes familiar. The fear fades when the unknown becomes known. You as a building is not just an image, it's a map. When something breaks, you don't assume the entire structure is ruined. You fix what's needed, you check for leaks, you support the beams that hold the most weight. And most of all, you allow space for change, not through demolition, but through understanding what's already standing and how it can be supported better. Some emotional repairs don't come from breakthroughs, they come from small, steady acts. One of the simplest tools is a notebook. Post-social journaling gives shape to what was once vague. It helps track what you felt, when you felt it, and what might have caused the shift. It's not about writing something deep or poetic. It's about recording patterns. Did you feel drained after a group lunch? Did you leave a party with a sense of emptiness? Did you come home from work tense, but not sure why? When you log these moments, the structure becomes visible. Over time, you might notice that small talk with strangers leaves you numb, while deep one-on-one conversations feel good, or that group settings where roles aren't clear leave you uneasy, or that any social event longer than 2 hours tends to drain your battery. These are not faults, they're data. Your system is giving you information. Journaling simply gives it a place to land. Self-compassion helps that information feel safe. Without it, journaling can turn into self-critique. The point is not to judge the pattern, but to understand it. Compassion-based therapy teaches this difference. It treats emotional pain the way we would treat physical pain, with care, not shame. It softens the reaction loop. If you come home feeling anxious after a dinner out, compassion doesn't say, "What's wrong with you?" It says, "That was a lot. No wonder you feel raw." This shift reduces the stress response. The nervous system responds to warmth. It doesn't relax under pressure. Harsh self-talk only adds weight to the system. Compassion lightens it, even if the situation doesn't change. In practical terms, compassion means checking in without attack. What do I need right now is a better question than, why can't I handle this? It also means speaking to yourself in a tone you'd use with someone you care about. Most people don't realize how critical their internal voice has become. They've used it for years, thinking it was the only way to stay in control. But that voice often comes from early conditioning. It mirrors the tone of adults or peers who demanded performance, not presence. Replacing that voice takes practice. Compassion is the new language. It takes time to learn, but it changes the feel of the whole system. Therapy gives structure to this work. When patterns keep looping, or when old pain shapes too many parts of your emotional building, therapy offers a plan. Not a fix, but a redesign. Many beliefs formed early, ones that say you're too much, not enough, not safe to be seen, become part of your foundation. You build walls around them. You organize your emotional rooms to protect them. Therapy helps you trace those decisions. A good therapist doesn't tear anything down without reason. They walk through the building with you. They ask why certain doors are locked. They notice where the floor feels uneven. They help you decide what can be reinforced and what can be changed. Some parts of your structure were built under pressure. Others were built in panic. That's not a failure. It's survival. But once the storm passes, the building still carries the marks. You may keep using the same patterns, not because they're helpful now, but because they were once the only way through. Therapy makes space to choose again. With time, it becomes less about coping and more about restoring the structure in a way that fits who you are now. While that process happens, it helps to create safe rooms, both physical and emotional. These are places where your nervous system doesn't brace, where your thoughts don't race, where you feel no pressure to perform. Sometimes these spaces are actual rooms, a corner of the house, a spot on a park bench, a car parked in a quiet lot. Sometimes they are rituals, a song, a journal, a certain chair by the window. The point is consistency. When a place or practice feels safe, the body starts to associate it with recovery. It becomes a cue to let down the guard. A young man with social anxiety struggled to find peace after interactions, even casual ones. Talking to coworkers left him drained. Even texting friends made his chest tighten. At first, he thought he needed to push harder, be more confident. But nothing changed. Eventually, he stopped trying to fix the social anxiety and focused instead on recovery. He cleared a corner in his bedroom and made a reading nook, a small armchair, a lamp with warm light, a blanket. He sat there every night after work, with no pressure to do anything else. No phone, no talking, just stillness. Over time, that space became more than furniture. It became a signal to his nervous system. You're safe here. He didn't force himself to get over it. He gave himself a space to land. That small corner gave him more peace than any advice about confidence ever had, because it didn't demand anything from him. It held him exactly as he was. These practical tools don't erase emotional strain, but they help make sense of it. They turn overwhelm into information. They give the nervous system room to breathe. The process is slow but steady. Not everything needs to be reimagined at once. Sometimes all you need is one working room, one quiet system, one warm light, and from there, the rest of the structure can start to shift. Some places leave a mark without saying a word. A hallway, a living room, an empty chair. They trigger feelings we thought we buried. That's because the brain stores memories with emotion tied to place. The body remembers. It senses the past through lighting, sound, texture. What we once felt in a space can return without warning. A house becomes heavy, a building becomes painful, even a street corner can feel too full of memory. These reactions aren't irrational. They're the mind and body working together, storing experience in walls, corners, and silence. Our internal spaces behave in much the same way. Socializing can overload the system. It offers highs, connection, laughter, belonging, but often ends in a crash. The nervous system needs time to recover, especially when social life requires masking or performance. People come home from a night out or a day at work and suddenly feel lost or hollow. It's not because they did something wrong. It's because their internal architecture ran beyond capacity. The system needs rest, not judgment. The self works like a building. It has rooms, circuits, and systems. Emotional states fill different parts of us. Regulation systems try to balance heat and cold, just like HVAC. Some areas are bright and open, others stay shut. Some were built under stress, others never got finished. Past trauma can show up as cracks in the foundation. A comment or event can shake the whole structure. These responses can seem out of proportion, but they make sense when you trace the design. Your reactions live inside how you're built. Avoidance also fits into this map. People stay away from places that hold pain, not because they're afraid of geography, but because the space reminds them of what hurt. A cafe, a neighborhood, an office hallway. The location becomes part of the memory. That's not weakness. It's the nervous system protecting itself from what it can't yet handle again. Loneliness in groups shows us where our insulation thins. Being around others can reveal what we still long for: connection, understanding, ease. When a room is full and you still feel empty, the problem isn't always the space. Sometimes it's the weight of expectations shaped by years of trying to belong. We think certain settings will heal us. When they don't, we blame ourselves. But often, what's missing is deeper care. Not from the room, but from within. We can change how we move through these spaces. Journaling maps the emotional layout. Compassion softens the impact. Therapy offers tools to rebuild. Safe places, both physical and emotional, help the system recover. These aren't quick fixes, they're maintenance. They help you understand where the pressure builds and where repair is needed. Some places hurt not because they're haunted by ghosts, but because they hold pieces of who we used to be and who we hoped we'd become. They reflect unfinished stories. They echo what was lost or never reached. That's not something to erase, it's something to care for. Regret doesn't mean you failed. It means your building needs attention. Not demolition, just steady work. A new coat of paint in one room, a repaired window in another, and maybe a safe corner where you can finally rest without pretending.